It happens. Okay, so quizzes are done and graded. There was a small curve that went in. Now, I will offer you this opportunity. If you didn't finish it and you needed more time, that's fine. You can come in and do it. But if you needed more time and didn't finish it, you don't get the curve if you finish it. So Kate did well because she didn't finish a lot and was able to redo it and did much better.
Good job, Kate.
So nice. But she had the answer key too, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's nice. That's the key to success right there.
It is. It is.
Nice.
And being I don't miss school. The only days I missed last semester is when I took my med class in the cadaver lab, so it was all school related. So technically, I never missed school. I'm taking a day off tomorrow.
Nice.
So don't come and try and make anything up with me tomorrow because I won't be here.
Oh,
what if we don't come to class?
I'm not gonna be here.
Can you make this up? Make us watch a movie instead of doing that?
I have a retired math teacher. She's an excellent teacher who will teach her. Mrs. Hogue. She is a former Cherry Creek teacher, and I think she's not me, but she's a pretty close second place to me.
Come on.
So, yeah, hey, I'm taking the day off to spend some time with my oldest daughter. So.
Nice.
In the snow. Doing a pow-pow day.
Nice.
Oh.
You want to march?
I don't know where I'm going yet. Don't know yet. Maybe Loveland because it's close. But then.
Go to Cop and write up the flyer and see how the local thing is.
All right. Then you also have to realize that there shouldn't be a lot of traffic tomorrow, so maybe we'll hit Vail.
Nice. Isn't that like 3 hours away?
Yeah, roughly, give or take.
Nice.
When I'm driving though, man, I'm passing people on the shoulder. It's great.
Yeah.
All right. So we had started on Thursday last week exponentials, and your assignment was 9A. So let's see what kind of questions you might have had on 9A. Blessing you. Go ahead.
What's the horizontal asymptote? I don't know what that was.
Okay, so the horizontal asymptote if it's so if you don't have a C value out there, it's 0. If you do have a C value is, whatever that C value is will be your horizontal asymptote. Remember, an asymptote's a place that you can't cross. We approach, get really close to it, and I give you the analogy of when you get really, really, really close to your brother or sister in the back of the car and they complain that you're touching them. Mm-hmm. Or you have my cousin Lisa who didn't understand asymptotes and she bit me. And something about 1973 wasn't a good year. Wasn't a good year for me, I'd say. Actually, it was an okay. So after she bit me, we moved to Arizona. Moved from Jersey to Arizona. Let's get away from them.
That's why you moved?
Yeah, I'm sure. We'll go with that reason. We were running from the mob, so. I'm just kidding. What are any other types of questions? You had one?
2C.
2C. Okay. Okay. So this will be growth because my base number here is a number that's larger than 1, and we'll actually see a little bit more about that today. So if I were to graph this, my horizontal asymptote, because there's nothing out there, has to be here. Is that okay so far?
Yep.
And then it's kind of hard to try and decipher every point because obviously we're dealing with an infinite amount of points. Someone has music on. So an easy one to do is plug 0 in. If you plug 0 in, that's going to tell you where it's going to cross the y-axis. Plug 0 in and make it work. So 3 raised to the 0, well, any number other than 0 to the 0 power is 1. So 3 to the 0 is 1 times 1/3. So if I have 1 here, 1/3 is roughly there. And then if you just wanted to do a different point, 1 would be pretty good to plug in because 3 to the first is 3. 1/3 of 3 is 1. So I get 1, comma 1. And here's my exponential growth graph. Okay. So is there any other questions on the homework? Or you feel which one? 3C. 3 and then C. Y equals 1/2 and then times 5 to the 0. Okay, this is again growth, or 5 to the x, excuse me. This is growth as well because the number that's having the x raised to it is a number that's larger than 1. So if I go ahead and graph this, my horizontal asymptote is this still. And then I can plug in values. So plug 0 in, that'll find us where it crosses the y-axis. So 5 to the 0 is 1. 1 times half is half. So if I have 1 here, then half is here. And then another number that I might plug in, I guess you could plug 1 in. 5 to the first is 5. 5 times 1/2 is 2.5 or 5 halves. So 1 and then 2.5 is like here. So that's what that looks like. Anything else? What am I trying to watch? Okay.
To graph them, you just like plug in numbers pretty much.
Yeah, basically 2 numbers.
So
Get where it crosses the y-axis by plugging 0 in every time, and then do the arithmetic, and then plug. 1 is usually pretty easy. -1's pretty easy as well. Yeah.
So like if you were doing 2D,
2 which one?
D, would you just do like if you were doing the x as 1, would it just be 3 and 1 is 3 plus 1?
So this one has a horizontal asymptote at 1 because it's +1. And then if you plug 0 in, 3 to the 0 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So it kind of looks like that. You could plug 1 in and get another point. We good? All right, make sure your names are on those. Take a few minutes to finish up if you need to. But I just want to talk to you real quick. I briefly spoke about this earlier, but this is where you need to know that this takes place. And I just want to talk about just some financial literacy. Now, I am no way, shape, or form a smart person. Okay? I understand certain things, but it doesn't make me smart. But compound growth is really what will allow you, if you have time on your side, which you all do, will be something that if you can dedicate yourself to this. Have you ever heard the terminology, make sure you pay you first?
No.
Okay. Basically, if you're looking to have a relatively nice retirement and you're not a trust fund kid, and believe me, I grew up with people who are trust fund babies. My friend Brian Schimpf, his father was one of the founders of a small little company you might have heard of called Motorola. So I will just say that Brian, his trust fund was upwards of $20 million plus. So Brian kind of works. He sometimes sells houses, but he doesn't need to. Basically, I think what he's really doing is he's just looking for cool houses that he could buy and then sell his old one. And about every 4 or 5 years, he will buy a new home. And so he's just he's got a beautiful house in Paradise Valley, Arizona. And then he has a beautiful house up in Pine Top, Arizona, which is where a lot of the other people from Motorola have retired, and their kids also have homes up there. So another one of my friends' name's Travis Jacobson. Him and his brother Damon, they are trust fund babies, but they were also given a business that turned into a multi-million dollar a year endeavor. You know what they do? You know those big holding lot facilities where you could rent yourself a storage unit? So they started that, and it started in Arizona with their company, and now it's a worldwide company.
U-Haul.
It's not U-Haul. It's just a storage unit facility. And I will tell you that Damon was much more the one who would go out and have a whole lot more fun. But Damon has a lime green Lamborghini. That's his get-around car. And he also has 2 different Rolls Royces. One's a convertible and one's a 4-door, just in case there's family that want to ride. So he's they're doing Damon travels the world now, making sure each of his little adventures with his company are doing quite well. And he married a supermodel out of Switzerland, and he's already a good-looking guy. He's always been a good-looking fella, and and he's probably one of the best-looking fellas I know. And I'll tell you, his wife makes him look ugly. So that's kind of that adventure. But needless to say, I gave you 2 examples of people I knew who really don't have to work a whole lot in life. But for the rest of us, there is an investment, and I have looked into something called mutual funds. Now, some people will say, oh, that's a horrible investment because it doesn't grow as quickly as the individual stocks. That's correct. But mutual funds offer something that's pretty significant. So when I was 18 years old, I started my first mutual fund. And my grandpa had told me, this is a great way to do it. My grandfather was an auditor for the United States government. And he wasn't the auditor who would make sure you did your taxes right. He was the auditor that if the government was taking bids on a project and a company would come in and bid on it, he would go and do an audit of the company to make sure that company could afford to do that. And so he was a person who also understood money. So I'm going to represent mutual funds with a cylinder. Okay? They're not cylinders, but for a visual, I think you can do this. So what I first did is my first mutual fund, I wanted it to get to $2,000. And so in 1988, I put $500 of my own money into this mutual fund. Now, how a mutual fund works is this. And you tell me if this sounds like a good idea or not. I might be totally wrong, and if this is being recorded, if you show your folks are like, oh, he's an idiot. Well, okay, I'm an idiot. So, how a mutual fund works is this. Every 3 months, so every quarter, you could get a payout from your mutual funds called a dividend. And what a mutual fund is really like is you are buying a small portion of a mutual fund which can act like a bank. And so as you invest in it, those companies that are represented in the mutual fund, and so like mutual funds could have anywhere from 2 to 30 different companies or even more than that are represented in it. And so the dividend, what it does is it's kind of like they're paying you back because you have lent money. And if you take the dividend, you still have the share. And a share would be like a little tiny portion of this. And each share costs a certain amount of dollars. You can buy a portion of a share as well. But take that little dot as one share. And let's say that one particular mutual fund, each share was $50. So basically meant my 500 bought 10 shares. Is that, you follow me in this example? Now there's thousands upon thousands of shares in these mutual funds. And how you can figure out how many shares are in a mutual fund is you can look how much a mutual fund is worth divided by the price of the mutual fund. So the price of the mutual fund can go up and it can go down. And so basically what a mutual fund does is this. This is what the graph kind of looks like of a mutual fund. So as it goes to the right, it's growing. Okay? Now, the sad thing is we as people want to take a snapshot of a small little portion of anything and act like the sky is falling. So if I took a snapshot right there, I would see that it's kind of declining. But if you look at the entire history of it, you can see it's growing. Bless you.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? So what I did is, rather than me take the dividends that are pay out to me every 3 months, I said I want my dividend to go back into the mutual fund. Okay? And each month I put a certain amount of money into my mutual fund. So now the mutual fund has 2 different entities that are making it grow. Me and the mutual fund. Does that make sense? So let's say this mutual fund got to $2,000. Then I decide I want to buy another mutual fund. Okay? So this mutual fund, I'm now going to start, I'm not going to put money towards this anymore. I'm going to put my money here. This is going to have its dividends go back into it. And then watch this. I'm going to direct the dividends from this one to go here. So now that second mutual fund is being paid into by 3 entities. Myself, itself, and another mutual fund. And let's say once that mutual fund gets to a certain amount of money I feel comfortable with, I'm going to buy another mutual fund. And I'm not going to have my money go there anymore. It's going to go here. I'm going to have its dividends go here. These dividends go here, and these dividends go here. So now that mutual fund has 4 entities that are investing into it. Okay? So right now, I have 22 different mutual funds that are mine. I'm investing in. So think about it. I have 22 mutual funds. That means there are 23 entities putting into that mutual fund. Me, the 22nd one, as well as the 21st, 20th, 19th, 18th, 17th, 16th. So how fast would that 22nd mutual fund grow? Think about it. Every quarter, let's say I'm putting $100 in, and one mutual fund says, oh, here's $5, and here's another mutual fund that says, oh, here's $160, and here's another one that says, here's $38. How fast do you think this thing would grow?
Pretty fast.
Pretty fast. And then once you have all of my conglomeration of all my mutual funds, maybe I said all of them should be $2,000 now. Then I might say, you know what? I want to start making them all worth $5,000. So then I'm going to pick one of the mutual funds and say, that one I want to get to 5,000. So all 22 mutual funds are paying into this as well as me. How quickly do you think this one would get up to $5,000? Pretty quickly. And then after all of them get up to that next benchmark, then maybe I say, hey, I want all my mutual funds to get up to $10,000. Okay? Start doing the money here. 10,000 times 22 is 220,000, right? And that's if I stopped at 10,000. Okay? Now, let's just pretend I am set and done and I'm retired and I want to start living the good life. Well, I'm going to still continue to own all those shares of those mutual funds. Now, here's kind of a cool gig. The state of Nevada, because I work there, they're going to start giving me my retirement when I turn 54. I'm 48 right now. So Nevada's going to start paying me retirement, and I'm still going to be working here collecting my money, and I'm going to still continue to invest in my mutual funds. But let's say when I get to the rightful age, let's just say I'm at 60, and I decide, you know what? 12 years from now, I think I'm all done. Okay, is that truly when I think I'm going to be all done? I don't know. I probably would go further. I enjoy what I do too much. I don't really work. Okay, this isn't work to me. This is easy. This is something I enjoy. So if you can find that kind of job in your life, you'll never work a day in your life, which is pretty cool. Well, let's say at 60, I decide, you know what? I want my mutual funds every 3 months to start paying me out their dividends. So I'm going to start getting 22 paychecks from each mutual fund to have as my next income. So think of this. I retire from Nevada. 54 years old, they're paying me. When I retire, if I retired at 60, the state of Colorado will start paying me every month until I expire. Okay? And then I'm a nice guy, so I decided to allow, there's a way that you can say, hey, if I go before my wife, she will then get my retirement until she expires. And my wife was nice too. She goes, if I expire before him, he gets my retirement. So that's all coming in. So I will have basically 3 sources of income coming in. I got Nevada, Colorado, and then my mutual funds. How does retirement look? Now some of you are like, oh, but how much? You're a teacher, you don't really make that much. So I've done a few things that I truly understand. And the biggest thing that you should take out of this is if you can live life living within your means, okay, meaning you're not looking to your neighbor saying, ooh, I got to have that too. And if you take care of you first, you as well can have this. And this is all related to compound growth. Okay? Now, just to give you an idea. So I didn't teach full 30 years in Nevada. I only taught 9. So this is going to be about $1,000 a month till I die. And it'll have a cost of living adjust. About 3% every year it increases. Okay, so it gets a little bit more each year. But so we're talking, there's $12,000 that comes from Nevada. Just do it as a benchmark. Because I will have pretty close to 30 years here, this one is going to be about $3,000 a month. These, so I ask you, every 3 months, let's go on the low end, say $6,000 every 3 months. That's an extra $2,000 a month. So now I'm looking at $6,000 a month that comes in. Is that pretty good money? Some people might say, oh, no, man, you got to make more than that. I'm going conservative on that figure. Okay? What's the right way to do it? I don't know. This seemed like a real logical way for me to do it. It's, in my opinion, a very wise way to do it because not everyone will follow the stock market day to day and individual stocks day to day. And I understand some people do. Now, I'm not trying to take away from them. I'm just saying for the rest of us that don't really follow the stock market every day, this is a pretty darn good way of making sure your income's good. Now, that has nothing to do with if I decide I want to start selling my mutual funds. So let's say my mutual funds are all up to $25,000 each. I'm just giving you a hypothetical value. So I could say, hey, I want to sell mutual fund A. Well, here's $25,000. I still have 21 others that I'm banking off of. I want to sell now mutual fund B. I want to sell mutual fund C. Does it seem like a good thing? I mean, I'm just trying to put a little financial literacy on your plate, which is a relatively wise. So unless you're like Brian Shimp or Travis and Damon Jacobson, my 2 friends that are trust fund kids, this right here, when I get to retirement, it's going to be fine. You want to know something that's really cool though? So when I turned 41, we lived here for 6 years at that time. My house was completely paid for. I pay taxes on my home. I pay my utilities on my home. My utilities aren't too bad because we have solar on our house. So I pay $70 a month for my solar, and I don't have an electric bill. And so people are like, oh, yeah, but your electric bill is probably cheaper than that. This month, yes, I'm sure it would have been. But if you take 70 and you multiply it times 12, that's less than what I would pay a year for my electricity. Own my house, pay my taxes, fiscally conservative. In my opinion, You know, do I drive any glamorous cars? My car's heat works. The radios work. My car that I drive here to school is the Mazda 5 little minivan that we had originally bought when we moved here because it was nice because the kids were still in car seats and it had sliding doors on both sides. Now that's what I drive here. It has rust on it, but you know what? 185 days a year, it sits in a high school parking lot. You know what I don't really worry all that much about? Oh shoot, I got another scratch, got another ding. Okay, should I go out and buy an Escalade? I don't really need it. Does my ego stroke me to say, hey, you need to have this? I go back and I see my friends in Arizona, and some of those guys, they are living paycheck to paycheck, but they act like they're millionaires by how they're living. What do they have saved? I'll start saving on like 55. Not a good idea. Financially, it's not a good idea. Is this a good idea? So that's just what I'm getting from those. That doesn't include what my wife would be getting. And my wife has a handful of mutual funds that she has on the side. She calls them her escape money. So, all right. Yeah, she goes, yeah, you always need about $100,000 to escape with. Okay. You realize I get half of that. So, and she gets half of mine too. So, but seem good?
Yeah.
The hard thing is, when you're 18, starting that, and you're looking at your statements going, man, I don't really have anything. Yeah, but when you get older, as you have time on your side, things compound more, and they compound more. That means more money, more money, more money.
More money, more problems.
Hopefully no more problems. So that's that. Homework's passed up, I think, I hope. Pretty quick lecture today.
More money, more problems.
It's a bigger packet, but it's quicker. Old one? Yeah. Yeah, just hand that in with everything all figured out.
The best. We're missing one.
Yay!
Oh, no, I get it.
Perfect. Love it. All right. So we're continuing on exponential growth and exponential decay. Things that work with decay. So some people think decay is a bad thing. Well, decay is a bad thing with money, yes. Decay is a really good thing when you have an infection in your body and then you go to the doctor and you get some antibiotics. So what your antibiotics do is it starts destroying what's in your body and your infection, and it lowers the infection more and more and more day to day to day. That's why you're supposed to continue to take your medication till it ends. Okay, unfortunately, some people think, oh, I feel like $1 million. If I'm taking amoxicillin, I don't really like it that much because I have diarrhea because it's killed off the bacteria in your colon. That's the good bacteria. That's why you should eat yogurt when you are on amoxicillin, so it keeps the bacteria count up. But a lot of people will stop taking their medication before the end of it. Okay, what does that do? It allows the bacteria that's in your body to get like really angry and ticked off, the bad stuff too. And then you start becoming you start compromising how the medical situation takes place, and you start getting resistant strains bacteria of medication. And that's bad because the bacteria, they're smart little boogers. They've been around a lot longer than us. They have figured out how to evolve into something stronger. So unless you wipe it out, all you do is you get this bacteria going, oh, yeah, my messenger RNA understands how this takes place. I'm not going to recognize that medication as something I want to absorb any longer. And it's going to wreak havoc. That's why we have things like MRSA. Okay, that's a bacteria that, if you get MRSA, the amount of antibiotics they have to give you, whew, you think you feel bad with MRSA, you wait till those antibiotics kick in. Yeah, they're going to knock you in the next week or maybe the week after. Okay? All right, so let's go through these. So this is a growth function. It says identify the y-intercept. So all you're doing with the y-intercept is you're plugging 0 in for your x value. So you get 0 minus 3. 0 minus 3 is negative 3. Then I get 3 to the negative 3 power. So this becomes 3 to the negative 3 power, which is 1 over 3 to the third, which is 1 over 27. Okay? If I wanted to, and then my asymptote of this one, my asymptote is going to be y equals 0 because I'm not adding anything. My asymptote to this one is going to be y equals negative 4. Okay, because this is my c value. Okay, if I wanted to find where it crosses the y-axis, I'm going to plug 0 in. 0 plus 2 is 2. 3 squared is 9. 9 minus 4 is 5. Okay? So your 0 value is usually like your day 1, your starting value. That's where we are going into our event if you're talking about like a flu virus or something like that. Oh, sorry about that right there. Okay. This is talking about radioactive iodine. The reason you would ever take radioactive iodine is if your thyroid, which is a small little gland right here, right above the men's Adam's apple. Girls actually have an Adam's apple as well. It's just that their vocal cords fall. They don't have a big knot. Okay? This little thyroid does all kinds of wonderful things. It also likes to get cancer.
Ooh.
Okay? So it's a fun place for cancer to say, dude, pretty cool place. It's the control center. Okay? So what happens is they would give you radioactive iodine because your thyroid absorbs iodine. The reason you want regular iodine in your diet, you might see just regular table salt. If you ever realize it, it'll say iodized salt. So NaCl with an iodine, little iodine added to it. Your thyroid absorbs that. Why does your body need iodine? Because you get something called a goiter that grows, and goiters happen in third world countries very often. And it's this huge projection out of the side of your neck. Ooh. Okay? It's not really an appealing thing. I don't think supermodels have it going, hey, look at my goiter. It's like, big old growth. Okay? So, what would this graph look like? It's going to look like this. Okay? And if you had an XY axis, it's going to look like that. So it has a half-life. It means basically if it's 1 year, so if you had 500 grams the first year, after the first year, it goes down to 250. The next year it goes to 125. The next year it keeps going in half. So the half-life divides it in half. That's why it gets down to this. Would you ever truly get rid of all the iodine in your body? No, because it's approaching an asymptote. So you will have the radioactive iodine in your system, but it will be at a low enough level that it's nothing to worry about. Exponential decay function, well, it looks like that. If this value here, if this value right here is between 0 and 1, so a fraction or a decimal between 0 and 1, you're talking about decay. It's going to be losing a certain amount, okay? The one thing that I want you to realize is if I had 2/3 to the negative 2 power, this is the same thing as 3 over 2 to the second, which is 9 over 4. Okay, so this doesn't promote a decay because if I flip it over, 9 over 4 is 2.25 roughly, or exactly. 2.25 is bigger than 1, so this would not give us decay. So you be aware of your negative exponents. So they want you to state whether this is growth or decay. So is this between 0 and 1?
Yes.
So that's decay. This, I have a negative exponent, so I could rewrite it to look like this. Is that 4 over 3 between 0 and 1? 4 over 3 is 1.3, going forever. Is it between 0 and 1? No, so this is growth. Okay? This one, 3 over 2. 3 over 2, is that bigger than 1? So this is growth. And then this one, 3 to the negative x. So I could rewrite this as 1 over 3 to the x. Is 1 over 3 between 0 and 1? So decay. Okay, decay means you're approaching the asymptote as your domain goes to infinity, so your x value goes to infinity. Growth means you are going away from the asymptote. Okay, so let's do this one, and we'll do this one in blue. So if I want to find, so first off, I know I have an asymptote right here, okay, because my c value is 0. If I plug 0 in, I get 3/4 raised to the 0 power. 3/4 to the 0 power is 1. So this is what this one looks like. If I looked at this one, I have the 1/4 power. I take it back. I just made an error. I made an error. Let me erase this. I apologize. So I still have this at 1. Blue. This one actually should have looked like this because it's decay. Notice as I go to the right, it's approaching my asymptote. If I have the 1/4 power, that again is going to be an asymptote. So if I take 0 and plug it in, 1/4 to the 0 power is 1. 3 times 1 is 3. So this one looks like this. Come on, baby. This one looks like this. Okay? They're very similar graphs. One's just shifted upward because, or it's not shifted upward, it has a higher y-axis. The asymptote doesn't shift. Okay. What happens here? This changes the asymptote. Okay, that changes where you're going to adjust. So if it's a positive, your asymptote's up. If it's a negative, your asymptote moves down. So it's the same kind of shifts that you would normally get. So if I did 6 to the 2/3 raised to the x minus 3, let's ignore the fact that x minus 3, some people might see it as a negative exponent. No, it's not necessarily a negative exponent, but it will be, this one does appear to be a decay because that's between 0 and 1. So if I plug 0 in, 0 minus 3 is negative 3. So I get 6 to the 2/3 to the negative 3, which is then the same thing as 6 to the 3 over 2 to the 3rd, which becomes 6 to the 27 over 8. And if I could do fractions, I'd be a much better teacher. So that goes in there 3 times, that goes in there 4 times. That becomes 81 over 4. 81 over 4 is 20 1/4. So 0, 20 1/4, if I count this by 5s. 20 1/4 is about here. Okay? Let me ask you this, friends. As I plug larger values in, so if I plug 3 in, I get 3 minus 3, which is 0, correct? Okay, so I plug 3 in. If I'm counting this by 3, just by count that. If I plug 3 in, I get 0. 2/3 to the 0 is 1 times 6. So that's right about here. So that's what this one's going to start looking like. My asymptote is right here on the red one. On the blue one, my asymptote is going to be at positive 2. Okay? If I wanted to find where it crosses the y-axis, I can take 0 and plug it in for x. So 0.4 to the 0 is 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. So this one's going to look like this. Okay, and again, I know it's decay because it's approaching the asymptote as I go to the right, or as my domain grows. Growth or decay here? Decay, because 2/3 is raised to the x. Okay, this negative here means it's going to be flipped upside down. Okay, so if I plug 0 in, so here's my asymptote on my blue one. If I plug 0 in, 2/3 to the 0 is 1. 1 times -6 is -6. Okay, it's decay, so this one actually comes up and does this. Take it back. I'm off, I'm off, I'm off. It's decay, so it has to grow away from. Okay? The second one I'll do in black. Still has the same asymptote. This plus 3 basically means the whole graph shifts over 3. This -2 means it's down below. If I take 0 and plug it in, 0 plus 3 is 3. 1/4 to the 3rd power is 1/64 times -2 is -1/32. And it's decay because it's growing away from the asymptote as our domain gets bigger and bigger, as our x goes to a larger number. Okay, identify the y-intercept and the asymptote. Asymptote is y equals 0. Where crosses the y-axis? 0 minus 3 is -3. That becomes 3 to the 3rd, which is 27. 27 times 7, I don't know, some number, 49, 4, 14, 149. Okay. Asymptote on this one, because of this, is y equals 7. And then if I wanted to find where it crosses the y-axis, plug 0 in. 0 minus 2 is -2. Flips this over, gives me 4 squared. 4 squared is 16. What the negative is this. It keeps going. How far do I got? That, not? Okay. Identifies as growth or decay. So it approaches my axis. So this is a decay model. Okay. Write the equation for the graph. Well, that point right there seems to be about 0.8. So 0.8 raised to the x. And it's decay. So there's going to be, let's see, what's going to be negative. 0.8 that made it a negative. My a value plus 0. So that's roughly what the equation would be. And then this one is growth or decay. As I go to the right, do we go to the asymptote or we go away from it? So this is growth, same idea. So guys and girls, 9B will actually be due on Wednesday. Do me a favor, friends. My sub is an awesome person. Please be good to the sub, but do not hand anything into the sub. Got it?
Yeah.
Tomorrow. So she'll teach on 9C tomorrow. And then, so that'll just tell you that 9C will also be due on Wednesday. So make sure you do 9B tonight. That way you don't have doubled homework tomorrow. That's all I got for you, everybody. Take care of one another. Have a great day. Yeah, buddy.
Why don't you use his locker?
Yeah, buddies.
Cooper, I took your pen.
24/7 in that locker.
You got like a game tonight or something?
Game tomorrow, girls.